Mino Line Media presents the Business First Podcast.
Hi, all, and welcome to a new episode of Business First with Sonia. I am your host, and today I'm really excited about the guests that I'm going to introduce to you today. First of all, I've watched this young man grow up, so I'm super proud of everything that he's done and accomplished. His mom is a good friend of mine, and I'm really happy to have him here. But the other piece is, in preparation for this interview, he sent me down the rabbit hole researching, and I learned all of these amazing things about the institution of barbering. And so one thing I wanted to share before we get started is, and I didn't know this until today, that for the most part, from the 1800s, roughly from the 1800s until the early 1900s, particularly after slavery, barbering was a premier opportunity for job opportunities and for wealth for African Americans in our community, and that their customers were primarily prominent white men until white men started to get into the field. And so we all know that barbershops are really important in our community. They've been a really important part of our discussions, political discourse, debate, and they've been a really good place for community, a place where, men have been able to come together and just discuss things that they are passionate about in a really safe space. And so I'm excited to have Darius Davie talk to us about his the business plan that he has around this old tradition and how he's updated it and brought some new flavor and new and repositioning what community can look like for an overall community. And so I welcome Darius Davie, who is the owner of Groom Guy. Welcome, Darius.
Thank you so much for that so sweet introduction. Thank you for having me here today, Sonia.
Yeah, I'm really, as I mentioned, really excited to have you here. Understood, the history, the importance of what barbershops can represent in our community. But why don't you tell us a little bit about, what you thought about before the inception of Groom Guy and how you got here?
Sure. So it began during a time where I was had an interest in the industry. Probably about six years ago. I kind of like you went down this rabbit hole. I was looking for something. I was searching for something more. As I was routinely getting my hair cut, started to just get this curiosity about the business itself, about the culture, and because I found myself, like many of us, going there and finding sanctuary in this place where I could confide in with my barber and talk and discuss, current events and all these other things that were happening within the space, particularly in a space in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, where I was getting my hair cut. And the barber there was also a designer as well. I was just quickly fascinated by the idea that there was all these different realms within that was going and kind of being built within the barbershop space. And so it started to quickly go into a deep dive. I started to learn about the history of the barbershop, the American barber, as you were talking about those dates from, late 1800s to early 1900s. And I started to recognize Black prominent barbers who, to your point, were an establishment of the early middle class. And so, years later, I said, you know what? I want to commit to going to school. I want to understand the hair industry at a high level, which included, different cultures, different facets of the business. And before I knew it, I said, okay, I started to do some education. I started to learn and really grow passionate for it, but then discover how I can be a problem solver within the business. And so I think Groom Guy at its early stages started to birth itself.
Yeah. So you, like so many other entrepreneurs who we've interviewed over the past, couple of years, started your business really in the height of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And so talk to us a little bit about how you were working for, if I get it correctly, you were working for a barber that closed during the pandemic, but that was your impetus to actually start your own hair grooming business.
That is correct. So at the height of the pandemic, the salon that I worked in for many years closed down. And so I was kind of forced to figure out what my next move was going to be. And this is also at the point of me retaining all the information and knowledge and history and business, all of that. I started to realize, okay, if I can somehow formulate this into a model of sorts that becomes a solution to a problem in hospitality, extracting a little piece of history that I've seen before and kind of refine it, maybe there's something there. And in the height of the pandemic, you're forced to try. You know what I mean? Industry is interrupted. Community has kind of been broken apart. So you're put in a unique position to say, okay, the worst thing that can happen is that this doesn't work, right? But if we're going to be here in this pandemic where things are unpredictable, I might as well give it a shot.
Okay. And I wanted you to expand a little bit more about that. Like when you said, I might as well give it a shot, because you literally just put on a backpack and you became a mobile barber. And so what did you have an idea of where, and we're going to talk about all the amazing things that you've established just recently, but did you think, what were your thoughts when you put on your backpack and you started to do, mobile personalized barbering? Was the goal in the back of your mind, I'm going to actually set up this shop here? Or was it, I just need to make some money and, let me see where this takes me?
It was a little bit of both, Sonia, to be honest with you. The goal at first, yes, was to make some money. Because prior to that, I wasn't working for about a month and a half. So I had to figure out a way to keep clients who still served either in government, clients who served in television. I had to find a way to still service them, right? Because they still needed those routine services met. I wanted to find a consistent stream of income as what I was used to. But I knew at the same time that packing my bag and going out there was also a litmus test. To test and see if this works. Take notes along the way. So I would come home, I'd pack the bag, come home, see what works. Okay, this person is coming back or wants me to come back every 3 weeks. This is what the product that they like. Hey, if I moved here in a space like a hotel, is that something that would interest you, right? How do you integrate private service and also leverage, you think about real estate and where you want to place yourself? Because I just saw a salon that was massive closed down. Right? All of this real estate, large, huge. And so I said, you know what? I'm learning from this. I don't want to run into that same scenario, right? But I also want to create something that feels kind of intimate and private. And so it quickly, that's when the blueprint and the business plan started to I was able to sketch it. I was able to sketch it enough to know, okay, after 2 months, I have something here that I can pitch or present to a hotel in the middle of the pandemic.
And I'm glad you said that too, because I think some people think that you have to have everything laid out before you get started. And I love that you, in the midst of the work, is how you really understood, the marketplace, your customers, and how you could best figure out how to move forward.
Yeah.
And so how is it? So for our audience, if you're interested in barbering services, you can visit Darius and Groom Guy at Yours Truly, which is based inside of a hotel, which Yours Truly is a hotel. And Groom Guy has a spot inside the hotel. How did that come about in 2020? During the pandemic, while everything is closing down, where everybody's unsure about what kind of partnerships they want to make? How are you able with, the backpack guy, how are you able to solidify a partnership with a boutique hotel in the middle of Washington, D.C.?
A lot of, I'll be honest with you, a lot of it, no, it's not a lot of it starts with, it continues with our business model, which I always like to say, we have some of the greatest clients in the world at Groom Guy because this business is built off relationships. And I say that because it was through a client where I was able to, present what I would like to do, where that client said, you know what, this is an opportunity that's unique. I think this is different. I can connect you with someone else, right? Who then you will have to, you can present to the hotel. But by then you already have your blueprint. You've already tested the model. You've already taken your notes. You're understanding consumer behavior, right? And so when you present that to people who are in a position that seems a little not frantic, but it's kind of broken because they're in the hotel industry, no one's there to occupy the spaces. Right. You come as a solution. And I always say that when you are able to become a solution, you can accelerate your process. And I think that's exactly why, because they realize, wait a minute, we have an opportunity to be unique, to stand out, and build something that's low risk. Financially, economically, it also has to make sense. You also don't want to stretch yourself so far out there that you stretch yourself too thin. And you can take something in phases. The exciting part about something like this is when you communicate this idea, it was, you tell them, hey, if you don't like it, this is something we can pack up or we can go and we can say that we tried it.
So you gave them an out.
Gave them an out. Yeah, gave them an out.
But they didn't take the out. Right.
Yeah, quite the opposite.
Quite the opposite. And so what was part of that process like? So you went in and you pitched the idea, and what was their response? Like, we'll give you a trial, we'll figure something out, or did they allow you to just come in and design what you had in mind?
So they definitely started with a trial. They gave me a trial period of 3 months. And didn't have much option. They have, a lot of these hotels, boutiques may have, different rooms or areas of large amounts of real estate. But in this case, they gave me a space that was perfect because part of our business is also having visibility, as we are now amenity spaces. But visibility is a big part of how we're able to, continue to attract clientele. So the space that I was in was a relatively small space. But I think what really captured their attention is design. We were able to stretch their imagination with how giving them a room that they initially built out, which was a pantry room, and converting that into a barber studio and breaking it into phases. So the exciting part about that for them is that it challenged them. It challenged them because they had an initial plan of what they thought this room was going to be, and now have reimagined it into now what's in a featured amenity for the hotel. So it puts into not question, but more so like, how do we integrate this further into our hospitality pipeline? Because now we're also recognizing that this business model has a large opportunity for retention. So we have people who are now not just coming in for staycations. These are people from the neighborhood that are coming in once a month. We're finally keeping them engaged, right? We now have another area of focus for us to really be a landmark in the community.
And so 3 months, what was that? And for the purpose of the audience, when you got the 3 months, was that can seem like a lot of time, but it can also seem like no time at all. And so did you feel a lot of pressure in terms of like, if someone in the audience is saying, I've been given a 3 months trial, like, how would you recommend somebody manage that time to be as effective as possible?
Absolutely. So I was able, Sonia, to kind of calendarize everything, have a journal and break down week by, have a week of what my tasks were. What was my task in terms of my numbers? What was I trying to meet? And who was I trying to meet? That was another big part of it as well, was they knew that it was a new concept for them. So there was some flexibility there. However, I had to also position myself to understand and know people within the hotel and hospitality space to really kind of get the engagement rolling and getting them to really understand what the overall vision is. And so that way they can see month after month, okay, this person is making progress, whether that's through numbers economically or whether that's through, we're seeing our design or we're seeing such a positive response. Thankfully for us in 3 months, we were able to do both, which was continue to have engaging press in local media, as well as having a high retention of people returning back to the hotel.
In a matter of several months, you went from a mobile service to a luxury brand with one location, and now you have a second location. Tell us about the second location.
So the second location came about from the work that was done at Yours Truly, where the team there saw what we were able to do. Mind you, it's now been over a year. So what was 3 months, it went to 6 and now went to 12. And thankfully, there were early discussions about another space opportunity in Florida, where we were actually celebrating our 1-year anniversary event at the hotel at yours truly when we received an email from the owners of that property saying that they heard about us, they were familiar with our work, and would we be interested in taking on this new challenge, or at least visiting the property, because that's always the starter.
Absolutely.
One thing we always know is not every opportunity is for us. However, when we were able to visit the space and see it, I felt it. I just knew this is where the next space that it had to be in. And so, putting my heads together and was able to establish a team, thankfully, and it presented a new challenge because I'm not, physically there. However, it allowed me to recognize when it was time to build a team and assemble a small team, people of agents, if you will, that I was able to go out there and beside myself, communicate the brand, hiring the talent. About 10 months or so, the second place location in Florida is up and running.
But this new property in Florida is the PGA, and so which is a very prestigious property. It's a very particular property in terms of when I say particular, they're very particular about their partnerships because of the brand. But you were able to partner with Venus Williams, who through her business designed your shop. And so tell us a little bit about your connection, how you connected with Venus Williams, and what it is about the PGA, that environment that felt right for your brand as a partnership.
Sure. So we were able to connect with Venus and her V-Star team through, once again, having the greatest clients, having a team and having a network through a client of ours within Groom Guy, who worked in real estate, and so who was familiar with her design firm. So once they connected the dots, set up an introduction, we met with their team in Florida. Once we did our visit, told them about our vision, who we are, Groom Guy, what we represent, and we found out internally that they really enjoyed us. They really enjoyed the work that we did. And closer to our opening, our formal soft launch, is when we got the big surprise that Venus was there, and not only there, but to tell her herself that she was excited about who we are and what we were doing in a space like this, at PGA, which, as you said, is a prestigious brand, very particular. As prestigious as they are, they were looking and wishing to move into a new direction of lifestyle partnerships. They wanted to make the first step in taking a chance as well as yours truly, saying, yes, this is who we are as a legacy brand. However, we are stepping into a new phase, which does mean we're going to have to turn our heads a little bit and look and see what's around and see what's worth giving a shot. And I also knew going into that with Groom Guy, I had to just come in there, straight ahead with everything ready, just being ready, and I, before getting into PGA, I knew I had to be ready, having a case study, having a business plan, having all my materials, because I didn't necessarily know what was lined up yet.
I have so many questions.
But I was prepared for it.
Yeah, absolutely. How are you selecting? You mentioned, picking your team. Florida is not very far away, but it is far when you're talking about managing, an extension of your business. And so again, for people who are struggling with finding the right people or hiring the right people, what is there a process that you go through? How is it that you know that the people you hire are good people for your business and a true extension of your brand?
A lot of it is trying to see if they've kind of been in a similar situation where they've been forced these challenges and how they've been able to push through it. Kind of forward thinking is what really helps. It's you can have people who can just do a job, right, and have their basic responsibilities. That's listed kind of bullet point. But it's something about building a team that wants to build towards all having the same vision, collective vision, right? If we are able to be all on the same page of what the end of this race looks like, I think a lot of the times that's what's going to help you, because they have some sense of direction and everybody feels like they're contributing something, as opposed to just giving someone a job, right? We at Groom Guy want to continue to be, a force, a positive force, and impact force in hospitality, right? We believe that we can do that through our servicing, through our cultivating of community, and then, offering primary products and services too. And so if people can all kind of gather around that idea and making the world better through and talking about men's wellness and health and care, and we can have that and be one of the leaders of that discussion point, then I think we're all on the same page. But if we're just looking to have a job, yeah, sure, I'm sure that'll work out for you. But in the long run, collectively with our vision, you may find some bumps in the road.
Talk to me a little bit about mentorship. When you opened at the PGA, you had one of the people that you invited along was a longtime mentor. And we all know the importance of mentorship or what it can mean for people. But what has mentorship meant for you in this journey, in creating a business and then developing it?
And to your point, Sonia, we hear the phrase and the word mentor all the time, right? And what that may look like for some people. I think for me, over time, it's allowed me to communicate my weaknesses, to be honest with you, and finding someone who's able to listen and pay attention to those points. I'm not the person that's looking for what I want to hear, right? I like to hear the hard stuff, you know what I mean, about myself. And sometimes that mentor is there when I can when I'm learning to communicate who I am and what I want to be as an entrepreneur, as a stylist, as a leader. All of those value points are really important to me. And a mentor for me, particularly this person, Vaughn Accord, has been that person over the years, and watch me grow. And to be honest, it's not always someone who's like micromanaging where we're talking every week. We haven't had that level of consistency, to be honest with you. But I know when we do spend that time together, it is really enriching, because I'm able to communicate more things about myself. And he shares, his tons of wisdom that he's had over the years.
How have you managed feeling? I mean, you come across very confident, very strong, very sure. You've put in enough time where you really do understand your business. How do you manage those moments of fear, of anxiety, of feeling unsure, or the moments when you do feel a little unsure or unsteady? How do you get through those moments?
It's funny as you ask that, because we're in this self-care, health and wellness part of the industry, right? So I'm always trying to have little coping mechanisms and things that I do to take care of myself, to ease the process, because that's where it starts. The hardest thing, is being able to look at yourself in the mirror every day, I think, for a lot of people, because they have to see everything about themselves, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? But it's never ugly. It's all just insecurities and things that we have to just kind of face head on. And I've gotten to the point where I'm okay with that. I'm happy of who I am, but also excited about where I want to be. So when I think about all the things, like the difficulties and the struggles, I'm just reminded that it's all, it's cliche, but it really is all part of your journey. And you just have to find little things within yourself that make your everyday better. How do you make your everyday better? Is that your routine? Because I believe at Groom Guy, we believe a routine is one of the most powerful human behaviors that you can do to cope with all of those things, and once you recognize that, once you find the joy in that, once you practice that, once you activate it during your own personal storm, you'll start to see a level of development that you never thought you were really capable of. And many of us were challenged with that during the pandemic. And a routine for a lot of us was probably the only thing that got us through it all. Reading your book, cooking, meditation, going to church, calling your family members, all of these things, talking to your partner, getting a dog. I mean, there's all of these little lifestyle things that as I just shared, were things that I started to implement in my life that made my everyday better.
Tell us a little bit about your services. So when we book our appointments for Groom Guy, what can we expect when we walk in the door?
So at Groom Guy, you can book directly. Well, there's two ways. You can scan on your phone. So actually at yours truly, you can scan right on phone. There's a sign on the QR code. You can scan right on your phone, opens up to the website, opens up to the booking appointment system, and you are able to get our signature services, which are our haircuts, our beard trims. Let's see what else we have here. Yeah, we have our trims. We have wedding packages as well. So you can inquire about wedding packages for your groomsmen. You reach out to info@groomguy.com, and someone will speak with you there in regards to our two locations, both Florida and in DC, Maryland, Virginia area. So those are the two ways to do it. Is online, and then you can as well call to book your appointment.
Are your plans for Groom Guy to be a national brand or an international brand?
Oh, I like the way you think, Sonia. I don't mind international. That has a nice little, might get the passport to get to another location. But
Okay.
for now, a national brand is something to be said about that. And the reason I say national brand right now too is because I go back into the history about this, about barbering, and about this thing that we love so much, and those who did it before me, who were American, and these names in history that we've never heard of. And I believe that we can leave our same mark as an American brand, on American soil, being able to do this. Not discounting international influence. I'm all for it. But however, there's something to be said about, recreating what once was and giving it a new face. And here we are.
Yeah, I love that, and I would encourage our listeners to those of you who are research inclined to look up the history of barbering and African American barbering in this country. It's an interesting history. The history of men's grooming is interesting overall. One of the other things I learned, Darius, was that during the Middle Ages in England, I don't know if it was all over Europe, but the barbers were the surgeons because they understood how to use cutting devices. And so they were the surgeons apart from physicians. And it wasn't until much later that they separated themselves to, become actually physicians. So again, to your point, there's such a rich history in the world, but particularly in this country. And so, I hope that our listeners will come and make appointments with you. But tell us how we can find you. I know it's groomguy.com. How can we follow you on your social and all of the other platforms?
Yes. So everything is consistent across the board, folks. It is Groom Guy. Instagram, Facebook is facebook.com/stay polish, which is our tagline. That's Stay Polish, STAYPOLISHD. And then everything else is Groom Guy, all consistent. But you can reach out to me as well, Darius at groomguy.com.
Okay. And so is there anything else that we should be looking out for in the next, let's say over the summer? I mean, I know you've just settled in for the audience. Groom Guy at the PGA opened in March. And so that's brand new for you. Are there any other openings that you can share, or are there any other product releases or anything else that we should know about coming up this summer?
Sure, Sonia. So we are excited to announce our first product collaboration. I cannot disclose with who yet, but we will be launching our first line of products for around the Father's Day window. So we'll be having something special launched on Father's Day, Groom Guy related product on groomguy.com and with our partners. We are very excited about that. One other partnership I am excited about too that's happening specifically at the PGA is with Macallan whiskey. And so we were able to launch a partnership with them that we are very excited about. So there will be a bunch of different activations going on at the PGA Resort. And then lastly, we have a 2-year anniversary event at yours truly in May. We'll be celebrating 2 years at the hotel. So we're excited about that as well, because we have new partners on that project, on that property, which is IHG Vignette Collection. So we're excited.
Very, very cool. Before we let you go, just one more question. What advice would you offer to listeners in selecting the right partner?
Always tie it back to your vision. Always tie it back to your vision and write that vision down, and you make it plain. And if what that partner is offering doesn't align right back up to what you've written down, then there's some talks or negotiations that need to happen, or that's not the right one for you.
Right. And I'm glad you said that too, because sometimes just the name, you just go, just the opportunity to partner with someone big can get you so excited that you forget about whether or not there's an alignment with your brand and their brand. So that's right. Darius said, make it plain. Make it plain. So Darius, thank you so much for making time to be on here. We are, the aunties are super, super proud of you. And I look forward to having you back The team here looks forward to having you back. As you grow and develop, we're wishing you great success. And we're going to we'll follow your progress.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for the time, Sonia. It is, first of all, I congratulate you for everything that you've been doing here, and I'm more than happy to come back. The journey is just beginning for both of us, so I'll be more than happy to return. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all for listening and tuning in. We'll be back again next week with another great guest.
The Business First podcast is hosted and produced by Sonia Aline. Executive producer Ken Johnson. Find the Business First podcast on Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, Odyssey, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, TuneIn, or wherever you get your podcast. On social media on IG at business_first_podcast. Follow the Mean Old Line Media Podcast Network on IG at Mean Old Line Media. Get the Mean Old Line Media app in the App Store or Google Play. The Business First podcast is a Mean Old Line Media production.